I am the very model of a candidate political. I act upon the premise that the public is uncritical. I shy away from concepts such as verbal specificity and always smile accordingly at charges of duplicity. In neighborhoods where I believe that I can speak with surety, I tell them as a gentleman that I'm for ethnic purity. But if alas a storm grows up and someone is offended, sir, I simply say I'm sorry, that is not what I intended, sir. On questions controversial, my response is often mystical. It's best to be equivocal and shun replies statistical. On both sides of a question, I can speak with brash impunity, and I can sing a different song and please each damn community. I plan to say what pleases every different kind of resident until I count enough of them to vote for me as president. In short, because I bear in mind that winning's very critical, I am the very model of a candidate political. We have had a Republican president for 8 years. The deficit seems out of control. One of the Democratic candidates had been clouded by adultery, and quick on the draw, Robert Dole had to register his tongue with the police. 1988? No, 1976. The first election year of the Mark Russell comedy specials. The year that gave us Jimmy Carter. Oh, I gave away the ending. Jimmy said, "I'll never lie to you." And to prove it, he admitted that he had lusted after other women. But only in my heart. That's right, in the famous Playboy interview. His running mate was an obscure senator from Minnesota named Walter Mondale, who had campaigned in California, where they thought Mondale to be the name of a little town near Pasadena. Incidentally, that was my first Mondale joke. It was also the year of our first unelected president, Gerald Ford, tripping his way through a bitter battle for the nomination against Ronald Reagan. And for added laughs on the show, there's always my vintage suits and haircuts. So let's go back 12 years when, as always, it helped to laugh our way through an election. If you're too young to remember what happened, I'll give you a hint. Reagan does not get the nomination. Remember, it's only 1976. Well, I predict from 1976, as far as the Democratic race is concerned, I believe that around March, Terry Stanford will pull out of the race. And it will not be noticed until September. I predict that Hubert Humphrey will campaign on a promise that he will stop the bombing in Vietnam. I predict that Sergeant Shriver will pull out of the race and throw his support to John John. I predict that President Ford will continue to defend J. Edgar Hoover until he finds out in a secret file that Mr. Hoover actually spent a secret weekend at a skiing resort with the Lennon sisters. All right, think back. When's the first time you saw Ronald Reagan? Think now. Way back. The first time you saw Ronald Reagan, remember? In the 5 and 10? On display in the picture frame section? Remember that? Right? He was always between George Brent and Katherine Grayson, as I recall. Well, I thought Reagan's announcement was his finest performance since he made the movie Bedtime for Bonzo in 1951. So if he's nominated, that will mean that the Republicans prefer Bonzo over Bozo. No, I will say that for a screen star, he's certainly lacking in flamboyance. I can imagine him at a wild Hollywood orgy, dropping LSD, getting a vision of Des Moines. Well, we all share his view that there's too much big government. We've got to deflate big government. Now, he came up with the idea to transfer all of the welfare programs to state and local governments. Now, if that works, you know the other candidates are going to get on the bandwagon and come up with their own ideas as how to take the action out of Washington and spread it around the rest of the country. And they'll have ideas, you know, they'll have like disbanding the armed services, and that way each city could have its own Air Force. And then Buffalo can attack Detroit without some wise guy from Washington telling them how to do it. Well, you think the idea of a Buffalo Air Force is ridiculous. Think of a Kansas Coast Guard, right? Yeah, Kansas, no ocean for 1,500 miles. They put a lighthouse right in the middle of downtown Wichita.